about information related to a recent release of Maryland report card results. Tonight's workshop is open to the public, but no public questions or comments will be taken. This workshop is being broadcasted live on AACPS TV, which can be found on Channel 96 or Comcast, and it's down on Channel 36 on Verizon. High definition broadcast can be seen on Channel 996 on Comcast, Channel 496 on Astound, and Channel 2136 on Verizon. This workshop can also be viewed on AACPS YouTube's channel. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Madam President. Today we have an opportunity to provide an ESSA update in the State of Maryland Accountability System now that the report card data has come out, and this is an annual presentation that we provide both to the board and the community at large. We have phenomenal staff out of our research and accountability department. I'm going to allow them to introduce themselves for the record, and we're going to get right into this board workshop. So I'll pass it over to you, Kelly.
Good evening, President Dent, Vice President Pulliam, Dr. Bedell, and esteemed board members. For the record, my name is Kelly Katzenberger, and I am the Chief Accountability Officer for Anne Arundel County Public Schools. With me today is
Michelle Hall, and I'm the Director of School Improvement Data.
We'd like to thank you for the opportunity to share our district's results on the Maryland Accountability System for school year 24-25. On the screen and in your packets, you will see some key terms and definitions that we will refer to as we work through tonight's presentation. I'll give you a second to look them over, but we will also remind you of these terms as we go through. So don't worry, there's no quiz or anything on these. I would, however, like to highlight for you the term FAE that you see boxed on the screen. Many of our accountability metrics only count students if they have met FAE. And what that means is that they were enrolled in our district for most of the school year, meaning that they show up in our September 30th enrollment file, and then they also appear in our early attendance file that we submit to the state in mid-April. For a little policy and strategic plan alignment, the Code of Maryland regulation, known as COMAR, requires local education agencies like AACPS to administer state assessments and report those results to ensure accountability for student learning. It's important to note that these requirements are not optional. They are part of Maryland's approved ESSA plan. At the local level, the AACPS strategic plan reinforces this commitment. Our goals focus on academic achievement and preparing every student to be future ready. MCAP assessments and other ESSA measures provide data to progress monitor our goals to meet both legal and strategic plan obligations. These data allow us to compare our performance to other counties in the state. As you can imagine, our very driven and competitive superintendent is always most interested in these results. Our current day ESSA, or Every Student Succeeds Act, has evolved over time, as you can see here on the timeline. Originally enacted as the Elementary and Secondary Education Act in 1965 under President Johnson, this law secured federal funding to ensure equal access in education to all students. In 2002, President George W. Bush reauthorized the legislation as No Child Left Behind, or NCLB, which introduced annual testing and strict accountability measures called Adequate Yearly Progress, or you may remember it as AYP. In 2015, President Barack Obama replaces NCLB and calls it ESSA, keeping annual testing requirements, but reducing federal oversight. This gave individual states more control over their accountability systems, but it's important to note that state plans still needed federal approval. Because of that review process, it took until January of 2018 for USDE to approve Maryland's ESSA plan. And we're going to help you unpack it this evening. Since the adoption of ESSA in 2015, and then the gap in Maryland's approval in 2018, you can see that our accountability system has not been applied consistently year to year. It has only been within the last 3 years, after COVID disruptions, that all required metrics in the overall school ratings have been included in the calculations. Looking ahead, changes to these metrics are coming again. MSDE has informed us that starting in the 2026-2027 school year, a new accountability system is currently in development that will make future report cards different from past ones. It's important to note that direct historical comparisons will not be available after the state makes these changes. So given the background, history, and timeline, Michelle is now going to help you dive into our metrics and how AACPS performed in school year 24-25.
So when ESSA was being introduced, we wanted a structure that would make sense with our vision in AACPS. After much discussion, the ESSA House framework was created. In general terms, just like a house, the foundation matters most, and ours is built on school quality. When students attend school regularly, learn in a strong environment, and take the right courses, progress begins to grow. That progress, once nurtured, leads to success, seen in the achievements of our English learners and in performance on standardized assessments. Our accountability office, specifically our school improvement data division, creates leveled and individual schoolhouses to simplify and summarize accountability results each year. Copies of your district schoolhouses have been provided to each of you for your review, along with the overall AACPS houses for elementary, middle, and high school. You see here on the screen 2 different houses that we use in AACPS to differentiate the metrics at each level. While the floors or levels of the schoolhouse are consistent between elementary, middle, and high, there are a few nuances between the levels, most of which apply in the green section, second level of the house, school progress. The growth room is only applicable to elementary and middle schools, whereas the high school house is comprised of a graduation rate and 9th grade on-track metrics. All of the other rooms are similarly calculated with minor differences based on the grade levels of the school. You have seen infographics similar to this in the past in relation to how our strategic plan prioritizes federal and state requirements. The ESSA house is no different. Each room of the house ties to at least one strategic plan priority, and as we go through the presentation tonight, you'll see little numeric indicators on each page, which are representative of the strategic plan priorities to which they align. So again, there's this common messaging and alignment from the federal, state, local, and schoolhouse levels, which we aspire for in order to help the leaders know where priorities need to be. So now let's step inside the ESSA house and take a look at each floor. So we will start at the foundation of the house, which is comprised of the school quality metrics of ESSA. Students cannot learn if they are not in school. So the first metric is chronic absenteeism. This measures the percent of students in attendance more than 90% of the time they are enrolled. It is worth 15 points of the ESSA house for each school, and it aligns with strategic plan indicator number 4. The second measure in the school quality floor is the Maryland School Survey. This is administered in April to students in grades 5 through 11 and to teaching staff at each school. It contains questions regarding community, environment, relationships, safety, and instructional support. It is worth 10 points of the ESSA house, 7 for the student section and 3 for the educator section, and aligns with strategic plan indicators 3, 4, and 5. The final room in the foundation of the house is access to a well-rounded curriculum. Are our students getting access to a well-rounded education at all levels? The metrics differ slightly in this room based on grade level, but all are worth 10% of the overall ESSA house and aligns with strategic plan indicator number 2. The second floor of the schoolhouse focuses on school progress. On this floor, there are different rooms based on the level of school. We'll begin with high school. In order to be successful in high school, we start with being on track in 9th grade. This room is worth 5 of the total points in the high school house and is defined as the percent of 9th graders earning at least 4 credits in any of the 5 designated subjects: math, English, science, social studies, and world language. In addition to beginning high school on track in 9th grade, we want students to get a well-rounded education. The next room, Credit for a Well-Rounded Curriculum, focuses on the additional courses students will take in high school as we develop them into the portrait of a graduate we hope to produce. This room awards points based on the number of students that take dual enrollment courses at AACC, participate in a CTE apprenticeship or certification, demonstrate a command of 2 languages by earning the seal of biliteracy, pass an AP, IB, SAT, ACT, or ASVAB assessment, or meet the University of Maryland system entry requirements. The final room on this floor for high school focuses around ensuring those students who were on track in 9th grade and received a well-rounded curriculum are now set to graduate. This is a 15-point room, 10 of which are allotted to the 4-year graduation rate, and 5 points allotted to the 5-year rate. For this report card, these rates are reflective of the 9th graders who entered high school in 2020-2021. AACPS's class of 23-24 for the 4-year rate and 24-25 for the 5-year rate. This data is lagging due to the need to have both metrics on the report card. And again, as shown, this is priority number 2 on the strategic plan scorecard. Moving on to the school progress floor for elementary and middle school, the majority of this floor is centered on growth in ELA and Math MCAP. This room only exists for elementary and middle schools as it requires 2 consecutive years of scores. The room is 25 points, divided equally between math and ELA. For 2024-25, the 4th through 8th grade students were compared to any student in the state who had the exact same scale score in 23-24. The percent of students that an individual did better than is labeled as that student's growth percentile. A school's growth score is then calculated using a table provided by MSDE. It's important to recognize Algebra 1 is not considered in this calculation, as only ELA and Math 4 through 8 scores are included. The final room on this level is similar to the high school for elementary and middle, and it is to track credit for completing a well-rounded curriculum. For elementary school, 5 of the 10 points are the percent of 5th graders who pass all courses of social studies, fine arts, physical education, and health. The other 5 points are the percent of 5th graders who pass MISA, the MCAP science assessment. For middle school, 3 of the 10 points are the percent of 8th graders who pass all math, ELA, social studies, and science courses. The other 7 points are the percent of 8th graders who pass MISA, the science test, and MSSA, which is the MCAP social studies test. You see this room ties to strategic plan indicator number 1. So we've laid the foundation of a solid education and made sure students are accessing and growing in the correct measures. Now we're hoping to see performance on state assessments. That starts with ensuring our English learner students are moving toward attaining proficiency in English. This is measured by the WIDA Access Assessment, and schools can earn points in two ways. One is by having students exit the EL program by scoring a 4.5 or higher, which indicates proficiency. The other way is having students meet an identified score on an MSDE table, indicating they are making adequate progress in adequate time. This room is worth 10 points at all levels and aligns with Strategic Plan Indicator 1. We've made it to the top. The final metric on the house is performance on the MCAP ELA and math assessments. This room is worth a significant 20 points for elementary and middle school and 30 points for high school. It is divided equally between math and ELA. Half of the points are earned based on the percentage of students passing MCAP assessments, and the other half of the points are earned based on the average MCAP score of a school. It is important to note that at the high school level, this score could be 3 to 4 years removed from the data release, as it is based on graduating seniors who took the assessments in their 9th and 10th grades. Each room in the house is then totaled to provide each school with an overall percentage score, Maryland percentile score, and a star rating. In addition, AACPS is given a score for the collection of elementary, middle, and high schools in the district, and you have those in your folders. Those houses are now displayed on the screen and show that AACPS elementary schools earned 64.2 points, middle schools earned 56.2 points, and high schools earned 58.3 points.
We hope you see how the pieces of the accountability system work together to provide an overall picture of district-level performance using these metrics. You all have been provided your individual schoolhouses as well. For families at home that may be watching, all accountability results for any district or school in the state are available online through Maryland Report Card. You can see the web address at the top of this slide for reference, or you can just Google it, because that's what I do. Once on the Maryland Report Card site, you can use the search feature for the results of any school or district in the state. And while their visuals aren't as pretty as ours, internally created houses, the star rating, state percentile rank, points, and overall score are available to you there.
The star rating for each school is determined by the total points that school earns for all of the rooms of the house together, and the bands are indicated in the chart on the screen. You may notice that the AACPS summative houses do not have a star, as these are only awarded at the school level. So, how did AACPS do for 24-25? We're pleased to report that 95% of our schools are 3 stars or higher, compared to 86% for Maryland as a whole. 16 of our schools gained a star rating from the previous year, and 12 schools lost a star rating.
Good news, all 3 levels, elementary, middle, and high school, all increased their overall ESSA points earned and our statewide rankings from the prior year. In the state of Maryland, our AACPS elementary schools rank 7th in overall ESSA percentage points earned, up 2 rankings from school year 23-24. I know this chart is tiny, so behind your schoolhouses in your folder, you'll also see this and the next couple of slides for reference. The 4 columns of data that you see here with the available points in parentheses, academic achievement, academic progress, EL proficiency, and school quality all are aligned to the 4 floors of our house. You can also see that in elementary school, we are very close to breaking into the top 5 for overall scores in the state. In fact, our elementary schools are ranked 5th in school quality and student success, what we call the foundation of our house. So as Michelle explained, the foundation of the house really sets the stage for performance scores, and we can see that the AACPS elementary school foundation is solid. Our AACPS middle schools are also right on the cusp of breaking into the top 5 in the state, ranking 6th in overall ESSA percentage points earned, up 1 ranking from school year 23-24. Similar to our elementary schools, our middle schools have broken into the top 5 in school quality and student success, ranking 4th in the state. As you can see, we beat Frederick, who's actually 5th. But overall, we are still 1.2 percentage points behind those top 5 schools in the state. AACPS high schools rank 12th in overall ESSA percentage points earned, up 1 ranking from school year 23-24, with 58.3 overall points earned. Our highest scores in the high school house were for post-secondary readiness, where we ranked 10th in the state, and school quality and student success, where we ranked 9th. We do, however, have room to grow in EL proficiency, where we rank 22nd. There is a lot to be proud of in AACPS. Overall, ESSA points earned are up. District rankings have improved over the years where the metrics have remained constant. Particularly impressive is our work in our elementary schools, where we went from 13th in the state to 7th in 2 years' time. The number of schools earning more stars is up as well. While we simply report the data, I can tell you unequivocally that all of our staff is laser focused on setting targets and working towards improvement in all of the required ESSA metrics. We recognize that we are almost halfway through school year 25-26. So there's only time for a very quick celebration for the hard work our team, students, and families dedicated to school year 24-25 results. Lagging data makes it difficult to plan effectively and pivot where necessary to have the continued results that we want. What we have done internally is to do some predictive work to help guide us, but it is just that, predictive. Another barrier is that MCAP, as it exists now, provides us no item analysis. This makes it difficult to determine which question types and content students are getting incorrect, which limits our analysis for improvement efforts. Additionally, while we increased our number of 5-star schools, only one of those is at the secondary level. Areas of focus for us moving forward are definitely in the area of EL proficiency across all levels. Additionally, MCAP math performance and chronic absenteeism, while we continue to improve a few percentage points each year, are not where we want them to be truly reflective of our abilities.
So now that we have the results for school year 24-25, what are we doing with them? All school improvement plan goals are aligned to 1 or more rooms of the ESSA house. Each school has been provided an individual house like you have in your folders, so they can determine their current progress and goals for 25-26 and 26-27. In addition, progress monitoring tables are being completed in each school as we use our internal and external assessments to predict how we'll do on MCAP at the end of the year. We will use this data to update the progress of the strategic plan scorecard and post those results, with the overall goal of elevating more 3- and 4-star schools and eliminating 2-star schools, moving AACPS to become one of the top 5 districts in the state of Maryland. Dr. Katzenberger indicated earlier that MSDE is reviewing what the future of assessments and accountability will look like in Maryland moving forward. The information regarding new possible metrics for accountability were presented at the last state board meeting and will be voted on in the coming months. So while we are continuing our focus around the current system, we are preparing the district to pivot as needed in the coming months and years to ensure our schools are ready to succeed at whatever metrics are introduced.
And with that, we thank you for your time and the opportunity to share the results and ask if there are any questions.
All right, board members, we are going to go in roll call order, starting with Mr. Silkworth.
Thank you. So I really would like to thank you for presenting. This is a lot for us to digest. It is a lot. I would like to thank Dr. Bedell and congratulate Dr. Bedell and staff and all of our students for where we are right now, because we are in a great place. Having said that, there are a few things that kind of did stand out for me. What you just said, so it's my understanding then that all of our schools have their house. And as they're developing their school improvement plan, they're developing that school improvement plan using this to help them move forward in terms of whatever their shortcomings might be. I did have a few concerns. One was about the climate surveys at both at the elementary and middle. Just looking at the elementary level, it's students 4.7 out of 7, teachers 2.1 out of 3, and middle school level students 2.8 out of 7, and so forth. So I'm not sure what that's saying, but it does kind of concern me when it comes to that data and what it's telling us. The other thing that concerned me was the chronic attendance. You mentioned AYP back in the day. Well, I remember being at North County, and we were challenged school, and we were challenged with achieving 94% adequate yearly progress. And, you know, we did make that almost every single year. So it does kind of concern me a little bit that we're struggling with attendance. And I'm going to suggest that there are probably some schools that may be struggling more than others. And there are some schools where they have strategies in place to help improve that attendance. I know we have, for what it's worth, we have a program called RAP. It's a responsible action attendance program. It seems to me like that's a pretty good program. I'm not quite sure how it's being utilized, but when it comes to the attendance piece, seems to me that we need to identify best practices. And then the other thing is, are we, and I don't know the answer to this, but we do have regulations about student attendance. And it just makes me want to be, or I'm just thinking a little bit about whether are we holding to those regulations and so forth. It's the accountability piece. So once again, again, this is a lot. And I do appreciate you providing us with information by district. You know, we'll be taking a look at that. And again, Dr. Bedell, thank you so much, because we are in a really great place, and we do want to get up into the top 5, and I have no doubt that we will be doing that. One final thing has to do with I'd mentioned to you my concerns about the state testing, and I know there are new testing coming down the pike. Accountability is really important. Students need to, we need to make sure that our students understand the importance and the value of doing their very best on these tests. In the past, many years ago, I'm not quite sure we did the best job of doing that, but I have every expectation, and I know that Dr. Bedell and our staff will do a great job of that. When the new tests come down the pike, we need to make sure our students understand the importance, the value, and they need to do their very best because it matters to them. Thank you.
So I don't think there was any questions in there for me to answer, but for the good of the group, Mr. Silkworth brought up the attendance piece. And one thing I can tell you that we are doing as a district, since we've really had a laser focus on chronic attendance, is we do have a district-wide attendance group that is trying to make some of those attendance pieces you were talking about as far as regulation and rules more systemic in nature as far as how those attendance concerns, if you will, are addressed, so that there's uniformity across all of our schools. So I can tell you that I'm on that committee, so I know that that work is currently being done. We've built in some celebrations, but also a lot of the progress monitoring. I know Michelle's team works really closely with schools to like dig into who are these students, why are they not coming to school, and then, you know, connecting them with the appropriate resources.
Thank you.
Michelle.
Thank you for a wonderful presentation. I'm going to take a moment of personal privilege before I dive into this. Hagi Reem Sameach, Hanukkah Sameach, Happy Hanukkah to all who celebrate. It's been a rough few days with the mass murder of 15 Jewish Australians and the injury of dozens of others. And we should eradicate hate everywhere we see it. And also to the Brown University community. My brother is an alum, a dear friend of mine is an alum, and I think about those lives lost too. All right, now happier subjects, this wonderful presentation. Thank you so much. I want to dive into the barriers a little bit. I know we've advocated for quite some time. I just want to know what the status is of getting better or getting any item analysis for MCAP. We've all been in spaces where Dr. Wright is present, and it just seems to me that she'd be the kind of human that would be wanting that. It is data driven, just like Dr. Bedell is. And so what's the status of our advocacy on that front?
I'll answer that one. So I serve on the assessment task force for the state, and this is a topic that has come up constantly. I think as the state is moving towards a new assessment system, we currently have what is called an adaptive assessment system. And when you have these adaptive assessment models, it is very difficult for it to then generate an item analysis. So I think the recommendation will be to move to something a little bit different. And we're working with an assessment think tank that goes into states and really help them to redesign their assessments so that ultimately we are able to get the item analysis and also get our data return at a much faster rate. I think some of those recommendations were some of the things that were being discussed on December 9th. So I do believe that they're coming. And if there's any more you want to add.
Nope. I mean, we currently get standard level data back. So we do get something about, you know, students did really well on these standards versus these standards. But as far as being able to look at question types and figure out, did kids have trouble with dragging and dropping, or did they have trouble with this particular item type? We just don't get that level of data coming back to us.
So the process of answering the question versus the knowledge of knowing the answer to the question might be at play.
Correct.
I hope we get our heads wrapped around it. I hope the state gets their head wrapped around it. Going back to early in the slide deck, the number of years of no data, obviously with COVID, I lived through that in its entirety. It was not fun. And only having 3 years of consistent calculations. So whoever from the state might be listening from home, I just want to advocate for consistent calculations going forward. This apples to oranges to pears to whatever thing is like not fun. And it seems to me that it's been the second or third time this has happened since I got on the board. And it's really nice to see year over year progress with some consistency. So my little plug for that. And lastly, let me see, I'm going to go back to that. I should have stayed on that before I flipped pages. The barriers again. So yeah, the lagging data is a super big problem.
I think that also contributes to our not, along with the data and the item analysis, to us not getting to where we know we can be, as quickly as we can. That's not an us thing. That's a state thing. Obviously, we need graduation rates and that. So I get it. I just think they could act with more urgency around the issue, because getting this information in the fall for the previous June is a lot. You would think they would know that much earlier. And with AI and all the rest, like, there's got to be something out there that they can make that happen quicker. So it wasn't a question, it was just a statement. But overall, I'm excited with where we are, and I just know we're gonna continue to tick up the leaderboard on all levels. So
Ms.
thank you for
Schalheim,
your work for that.
so what we're hoping, and we talked about this today in cabinet, we are waiting to see where the state will go. We were thinking that there was going to be, I don't know, 26, 27 was when they would start with this new iteration of assessments. They may start sooner. This very well could happen this spring, but we're waiting to kind of hear more on that. So, and if that happens again, it will be a baseline year to be a first year. I do wonder, and I'll have to ask this question at our next PASAM meeting, do we have any indication of how fast we will be able to get our data back? What I've explained to them in the committee is, during my time as an educator in the state of Texas, you take your state assessment at the end of April. By May 21st, May 22nd, you had your data back, and you had an opportunity to still work on school improvement planning, all of those things before you got into the summer. So that has been a piece that we really are pushing. I'm hoping that we'll see some of those changes.
Wonderful. One more, I guess I do have a question. So right now we have MCAP, before we had Park, before we had something else, I don't remember the name. But if we're just talking about, state testing, I presumably still in math and English language arts, with the couple extra sprinkled in for science and social studies, and we're just moving to another test. Is that consider a bridge too far with regard to continuing the consistent calculations?
So it's a great question. And the whole accountability framework is being reworked. So Michelle talked about access to a well-rounded curriculum, credit for a well-rounded curriculum, some of those, and Dr. Bedell is on the committee. He can probably speak more to this, but all of those pieces are on the table to be revamped.
All of it, including weights. The way that
Oh,
we
boy.
currently see these weights, that is going to shift. Chronic absenteeism, because for some of our schools, that becomes a very punitive metric. If the kids aren't coming to school, you already take a hit on your school attendance rates. If the kids aren't coming to school, you then take a hit on academic performance. You also take a hit on graduation rates. So then to turn around and have it be of value of points really creates inequity. So it's looking at a number of these weight metrics differently, and then ultimately, even with the access to a high quality curriculum, I mean, that kind of goes with an assumption. Everybody's getting the 10 points. That's what we're here for. So why there's other ways that we can look at weights. I think you can focus a lot more on growth and put heavier weights on growth, because everybody can grow. Even your highest achievers can grow. And so I think there definitely will be some changes that are going to hopefully help to push systems even further and get Maryland back into competing with Massachusetts and Connecticut, because we've fallen off. So we're still a top 10 district in this country, but I'm used to Maryland being number one.
I hear you, and I just hope that the next iteration, with the improvements that you want to see, stays that way for a number of years, so we can see some
do we.
consistency.
From the group who does the predictive work to try to figure it out, we figure it out and then they change it. Right. So
Yep.
we agree.
Thank you. That's all I have. Thank you.
Ms. McFarland?
I don't have any questions, but thank you for this, and thank you especially for the breakdown of each of our schools. I'm going to be digging into this. I'll let you know if I have any questions after I really fully digest everything. But thank you so
Sure.
much.
Mr. Morgan?
Hello, thank you so very much. I would love, if possible, maybe like a breakdown. I don't have any sort of breakdown or folder. Maybe a breakdown by cluster, if that could be possible. That would be awesome. Which is obviously a lot for me to digest, but I'll definitely try to look through as much as I can. One thing that I would love to speak to is the chronic absenteeism that we're seeing, especially when you look at it going from 10 out of 15 in elementary school, 9.5 out of 15 in middle school, and then dropping to 6.5 out of 15 in high school. One thing I hear from students quite frequently is that, if they're already running late to a class, they just won't go because it's a harsher punishment being late rather than missing the whole period and going just a second period or something like that. And so maybe if you know anything about that, that could be spoken to. If that is the case, if so, why that might be the case, and kind of enlighten me and some fellow students. I'm not sure if you might know anything about.
Yeah, that's one we would need to talk to Christina and George about, because that's the first time hearing of that. I mean, based on what you're saying to me, it sounds more punitive than anything, and it's discouraging students. But I think that's one I would 100% need to talk to George and Christina about.
Yeah, thank you. Like I said, I think even from my experience, if you're late, it's a warning, and then you might get like another warning, and then it gets to like, a detention in your lunch block. When if you just miss first period, well, you just get a phone call and a little notification on your Power School. And so that'd be definitely something I would love to explore. And like I said, the second, just a breakdown of the different clusters. That's all I have for now. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Puglia?
Thank you so much for the overview. It's so that I agree with all my colleagues. There's so much wonderful data here. So we're all writing down, trying to collect everything. I definitely this packet that we got this year up front, this is so very helpful. Pulling on the thread of Mr. Morgan, the chronic absenteeism, that's definitely something that I've heard. But it's also been suggested that we look at the allowable versus non-allowable. Some of the students have made suggestion that I'm doing something on behalf of my education, but it's not allowable where it may be allowable in a different school. So I think as we continue down this path and you guys keep looking deeper and deeper to look at it, there might be ways to really address some of those, what are deemed allowable versus non-allowable, and just I'm not saying reconsider, but maybe work with different students that I've heard students that are in ballet or a different type of, and they're one-offs, right? But they're in a different type of program that takes them out of the school, and sometimes they don't get the allowable or not allowable, or they have so many but not as many if they were taking the program at a different school, or they're pulled out for a special unique program that's not within the school system, so it hinders them. So when I look at this data, I think about the different stories that I hear, and I'm not saying that the numbers aren't accurate, but I'm thinking about other situations, if that makes sense. And even with when I think about the CKLA program and different changes that we've made, when you talk consistency, although this is 3 years in the making, we've introduced new programs, and it takes time to learn them and roll them out. So for me, I'm going to look deeper. It's not fair for me to come and ask you questions individually about each of my schools, but I would love to come talk to you. There's some that have increased and there's some that have decreased. So just better understanding and working with you guys to understand where you think the pluses and minuses, how we can, where that gap is. That would be helpful.
So Ms. Pulliam, you actually bring up a really great point that's worth sharing with the entire group, which is it doesn't matter to the state if the absence is allowable or not allowable. So the way that the Maryland ESSA plan was approved is that it is 10% is all you get. It doesn't matter if it's excused. They don't care if you go to ballet, all of those things. So it actually is a huge shift from the program before, right? Because we had a PPW in place who was going to go to your house if you had unexcused absences, right? Like there was this idea that if your parent wrote a note, right, it was okay to be absent from school and that was allowable. Under this ESSA plan and the way that chronic absenteeism is defined by the state, it does not matter. An absence is an absence is an absence. So it does make it tricky when you have these one-off situations like you're talking about to really try to, because really, we've heard also families say, do you want me to send them sick? Well, no, we don't want you to send them sick, right? But at the same time, you have to know, like, I appreciate your note, but it still counts against that student's enrollment record and counts towards the chronic absenteeism percent. So it's a fine line and it's a balance, right? Of we really want to encourage kids to come to school, but at the same time, right, you're the parent, you have to make that decision.
And that's
for your
helpful too,
student.
because I don't think that parents, when I talk to them, and that's why I'm glad you mentioned this online in this meeting, because it's my students actually wants to come to school, but this is something that actually is aligned with education, but it's still not allowable. So I do hear that frustration that they don't want to miss. It's not like with the scoring. Like I know that there's some of them, some are stressed about that. So thank you, just to know that, and thank you so much. I'll definitely be coming back for more
Sure,
information.
absolutely.
Dr. Tobin.
Thank you. Thank you for all of this. I seem to be about to sneeze, so forgive me if I suddenly sneeze. So a couple of things I wanted to pick up on that people, some of my colleagues raised. I do think, thinking of schools in my own district, the chronic absenteeism issue is a real barrier. And I think what has always concerned me, it reflects very much the circumstances of the students in the school. And so if you have somebody at home with a car and you miss the bus, you're far more likely to make it to school. If you have to take the bus and you don't have private transportation on really bad weather days and mom and dad have already left for work, you're far more likely to stay home from school. I mean, they're just these things that happen. Similarly, schools with high EL populations are impacted. And I think the concern for me is that there's often a sense of discouragement for a lot of the educators and administrators in a school if they know they're starting in a situation where they're already kind of behind, in a sense. So I applaud any attempt to begin to get at some of these issues and measure them in ways that actually measure progress rather than penalize populations for being in poverty or needing to learn English or whatever it is. And so, I always look at this and am reminded of those issues. I did want to dig a little more into something that was mentioned about the need to prepare to pivot. And I wish I could confidently say that the next assessment structure that emerges will be here for a decade. Something in me says that's very unlikely. I wish it would be nice for all the reasons that we have discussed, but history tells a different story, which sort of leads me to my broader question, probably more for Dr. Bedell, which is that setting aside the assessment structure, we're in a moment here where I think it's fair to say things of all sorts are changing very fast. And, my concern is always when I look at data, there's the old joke about, drawing targets around arrows, right? And you don't want to get into that trap. And I'm not suggesting that that's going on here, but the reason I raise it is there's always the need to step back and say, okay, there are these measures, but objectively, how are we doing? How are we doing? And obviously there's a lot of wonderful news here. So that's terrific. But if data at its best, in my opinion, is a check on the sort of nervous system of the school system. What are your takeaways, Dr. Bedell? What are the couple of things systemically that you look at and you say, you know what, we really need to think about changing something here or addressing something moving forward?
Yeah, I think there's a couple of pieces for me. One, I do think that the kids here in Anne Arundel County are doing better than what this data here tells us that they're doing.
Yep.
And I had an opportunity to present at the state board meeting on December 9th. And I felt that it was well received by the state board and those in the audience around what we are saying gives us a different indicator that we think the health and viability of work that we're doing in Anne Arundel County tells a whole different story than what MCAPs tell us. I think there's several things here. One, our schools, each year that at least I've been here working with this team, working with this board, we've seen attendance rates increase every single year. We've seen chronic absenteeism decrease every single year. There is a different level of confidence in students' belief in their own selves around what kind of courses they can take. More and more kids are anxious and really excited to take more advanced courses in this school district than we have seen previously. I would even say, even though these scores are low on the climate survey, well, we went up in all 19 indicators or whatever that the number was, right? Tells us that culture and climate is becoming much more ripe for us to produce a student when they graduate out of this school district, that they are well prepared to go on and thrive. And it doesn't matter what school you come from. I sent you a picture when I was at the airport the other day of a student that is attending the University of Chicago, graduated from A High. I'm sitting in the airport coming back from the NAPSI conference, and he just comes up to me because we're on the same plane. Didn't see him, and he's thriving, right? And so we have those kind of stories all over this school district. And so for me, I said this at the end of last year. I said to our team, I feel that we are ahead of where I thought we would be right now in terms of the progress that we're making in Anne Arundel County. And lastly, to just say to you in terms of that, I feel good about where we are. Then you go and you start looking at the retention of employees. You start looking at the quality of people that are wanting to work in this school district. And I do think that we're in a good situation, and we're definitely in route to that. Where I will tell you that it is important that we really figure out, are we really creating great future human beings, right? Because that's what's important to me, is when we look at, I always get this mixed up, the profile of our graduate, the portrait of our graduate. And the question is, with those 5 areas, do we truly know? Do we truly have the metrics to tell us, are we really creating these kids who will be great human beings when it's all said and done? Critical thinkers, collaborators, effective collaborators, students who have empathy and they are empathetic community members. I think that's the next piece of our work that I believe will have us really humming in this school district. And Christina and I are working on something right now as we speak that we can't share, but some stuff is coming in that area. So that's will be my response to your question.
Well, thank you for all of that. And I agree based on what I've seen. And I think the latter thing that you mentioned is particularly important. And I would suggest, you've heard me say many, many times, in my experience, both when I was teaching undergraduates in college and as a parent, I've seen over and over again that students and children don't do what you say, they do what you do. And one thing that has always troubled me, this is throughout much of the public education structure, this is not unique here, is that when students see the adults around them setting themselves up to just meet certain standards that they know don't really matter, students will buy into that, because why wouldn't they? Now, we have to do what we have to do. Let me just be clear. I'm not suggesting that we shouldn't. But I think what you're talking about working on with Ms. Catalano is so important, because, for example, the way chronic absenteeism is measured, students know that's kind of ridiculous. They know it. And frankly, it flies in the face of most of what Blueprint's going to be getting us to do, right? Where students are in, especially at the high school level, are in and out of school if we're doing our job. So I would just say, you know, we all continue to advocate. Dr. Bedell, you advocate, I think, very successfully for the most kind of authentic system we can, because the students are watching. And when we're simply jumping up to certain measures that we know aren't quite real in a sense, without at least doing everything in our power to make it clear and talk about the difference, I think we will be doing our students a great service in the sense of what it means to become that sort of full, self-aware, internally motivated human being.
Yes.
So thank you. Thank you all very much.
Thank
And
you.
I will probably be getting in touch with you about the details of my particular district as well. So thank you.
Ms. McDermott?
Well, I had some remarks about chronic absenteeism, but I think we've covered that at that point. I will also be getting in touch with you guys probably about the specifics of District 4 schools, but I just want to say thank you.
Anybody else have any questions by lights? All right, for my final comments, I want to say, first of all, always, I'm excited, especially when I see us going up. I don't mind being stagnant, but I don't like down, so up is always good. And I also want to say thank you for what you all are doing. I know that it's very hard for not only to do the accountability portion of it, but what is you consistently do is maintain the integrity of the requirement for us to do accountability. And so for me, in order for us to be successful, is that you have to have data integrity. And so thank you for that. My only question was pertaining to what I call the take-home test is the climate survey. And if there's anything around that we could possibly do that would encourage both students and educators to actually take that, because to me that's like we're just, even if we have the chronic absenteeism, it seems like we could probably pick up some more points in that area. So maybe some kind of, you know, maybe Dr. Bedell, you can give them a couple hours off or something. I don't know. Anyway, not suggesting.
Before it's time to administer.
Right. So, you know, so to me, when you have things like that are things that we can control, right? There's some motivating things that we can do. So I would just say, think about that. And then with that, Mr. Morgan, your lights on?
Yeah, I had something
Go ahead.
really quick. Really brief. It came to my attention when some of my colleagues were speaking, I think 7.3 points out of 10 for the percent of graduating seniors who have been enrolled in AP, IB, ACC, or CTE concentrator. I mean, that's incredible, right? I mean, that really shows that, Dr. Wood, you always speak about that gatekeep mentality being gone. I think it really is. And so I unfortunately have to say, but I feel, from a student who's gone from the lowest, of co-taught entry classes to, all APs, I really do feel, and so a lot of the students do as well, we must support students who, start AP after their freshman, sophomore into the junior years. And, I just want to thank Ms. Catalano that, a student came and concerned to me from a student from Carlton High School, came to me as the seat of the equity committee and said these very similar things, and a lot of seat did as well. And I've had so many students join that conversation. I brought it to Ms. Catalano, and she was very, receptive of the idea. And so I want to thank you for the AP work we're doing, and I'm excited to, continuing it and strengthening that support for our AP learners.
Well, thank you. And I know we have our budget presentation to you all in 2 days, and you'll hear a lot more detail about some of that with what I think some percentages that will definitely support why this number is growing the way that it's growing. So thank you. Yeah, I just really want to thank the two of you and those who work on your team. Again, these presentations are really good. And to be honest with you, Kelly, I feel like this needs to be a breakout session at a national conference, exactly what you just did here, because what it shows is this cohesiveness from a strategic planning standpoint, to what the state requires us, to what is required of us at the federal level. And so it gives everybody this big picture of how everything is connected, how it's all tied into a scorecard that we utilize to hold ourselves accountable all the way to individual schools doing the planning that they need to do. And so this is something, in my opinion, that needs to be taken on the road. And we did have a hands-on activity for you all, but we no. Just because it's so easy, like they gave it to us today. I just have to tell you this. And we weren't, what happened in there today? We weren't listening to anything you were saying because
it was very distracting. It's
Yeah.
like the students in a classroom, when you give them something and don't address the elephant in the room that you gave them, they play with it and have no idea what you're saying.
we had
right?
built, yes.
And that was cabinet this morning. They
Yeah.
were playing with the toys and not paying a whole lot of attention.
And we need more time to do that. So my
Yep.
whole thought was just sharing that with you all. They really do some phenomenal work, and I just want to commend you all for what you're doing in that department. Okay. I know, I'm sorry. I just need y'all to know we because remember we did the Scarborough rope, and yeah, we were up here playing with that.
Yeah.
It was fun, but yes, I just told him, I said this is great, just a great presentation. Thank you all.
Thanks.
Well, you guys did an amazing job. Thank you. I see no more lights. And so with that, this concludes tonight's workshop. So have a great evening. Thank
All
you.
right,
Thank
you. Yeah.